All right, guys, here we are with another week of Find Your Film. This is the week covering September 24th, 2021. We have a couple of really good movies to get to this week. Maybe they're good movies, maybe they're not. I don't know. It depends what Bruce is going to say. I still have nightmares about his review last week of Prisoners of the Ghostland. Bruce Perky, aka Tuff Perk. Have you changed your mind on that Nicolas Cage film? Is it as brilliant as me and Eric stated the fact, or were we wrong? Or is it just whatever? Has it changed? Please.
Well, since the suit came in the mail and I have to watch, it might start beeping at any time. I loved it quite a bit. Everything about it is good. I'm keeping all of my parts intact. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I wanted Bruce to actually submit to me and Eric's love for Prisoners of the Ghostland. You know what? Eric Holmes, aka a boy and his homes. I don't know what that kind of innuendo is. Maybe it has something to do with Sonny Crockett down the road. But Eric Holmes, do you like Bruce's mea culpa, him being watered down, or do you? I don't like that. It's made me feel uncomfortable with him actually saying nice things about Prisoners of the Ghostland. What's up?
There's no better positive review than a positive review under duress.
I'm blinking twice.
Okay. Well, maybe we won't be under duress this week because we have two movies to cover, our featured reviews, and we have a whole bunch. We haven't done movie rewinds in a while, so we're going to be doing some movie rewinds. We have some recommendations. So you know what? My fault. The last couple months, I don't know. We actually review maybe 4 to 5 movies a week. We are inundated with movies this week. For this episode, we're actually going a little bit more freestyle with the two movies, and then we'll each have a recommendation. The two movies we're going to review this week is a Netflix film, The Guilty, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, and the other one is a documentary called The Most Beautiful Boy in the World. All three of us have seen it. Eric Holmes, are you excited to review both these movies?
Yes, I am. It'll be good. But I'm most excited about some of our recommendations. And one of our box picks is going to be quite fun. I cannot wait for this.
One of the box. By the way, the box pick this week, the what's in the box, a little recap. Bruce Perky and oftentimes Eric Holmes, they will watch a movie that is actually suggested to us by one of our podcast listeners or some of our filmmakers. And some of the filmmakers we interview at the end of every episode, Bruce Perky will take a little a random movie. They're written in these little white strips, paper strips, and then he'll just get it out from a box and now he'll pick up a movie. And last week, this week, is he picked the Brian O'Connell pick, Tuff Turf. I'm just going to let all the cat out of the freaking bag. Tuff Turf, which looks like Tuff, by the way. This is a cool movie when Tuff is spelled Tuff. Enough, folks. We are back to the edit. I just got back, FYI. Eric Holmes just pulled a Celebrity Jeopardy with a little sing-along of Tough Enough, Celebrity Jeopardy also.
And it goes something like this. Is it? Never mind.
And then, by the way, rest in peace, Norm Macdonald, who was great as Burt Reynolds in Celebrity Jeopardy. You guys, any very quick thoughts on Norm Macdonald? Was he one of your favorite comics?
Yeah, he's pretty good. Watching all of his late night interviews, some of his stand-up. We got to watch him up in Denver. It was like 2 years ago. It was a while ago.
What?
It was
where? What was the venue? Was it a good venue? Tell me about it.
I don't know the names of the venue because I call them all the Chuckle Huts.
The Chuckle Huts. Okay, very good.
But there's I think it's Comedy Works, the South one. There's whatever one it is. There's 2 of them up in Denver. There's one north and one south, and it was at the south one, and it was pretty good.
Okay. So you were chuckling in the hut quite a bit.
Yeah.
Oh, so
there was plenty of chuckles in that hut.
Oh, you were actually very, very. I've never interviewed him. I've never really laughed in his presence. Bruce, you've never seen Norm Macdonald in person. Do you regret not seeing him?
I haven't.
Oh, okay. Wow. I'm sure
I
maybe
do regret it. I do.
Yeah. He's funny. I mean,
the one and only Turd Ferguson. I mean, come on.
The one and only Turd Ferguson and Norm Macdonald. I mean, Bruce Perky shares the same kind of dry wit that Norm Macdonald has. As you can tell, he was pretending to acquiesce regarding our Prisoners of the Ghostland. In truth, of course, you know how he feels about that movie. Speaking of feelings, when we get to the rewinds, I'm really excited because finally, all three of us, thank you, Eric Holmes, have seen Sweet Girl. We're going to have Eric Holmes break the tie. Bruce Perky, you know what? I'm gonna be sarcastic again. Bruce, not the biggest fan of Sweet Girl? It's not up there with the Searchers or Citizen Kane or The Third Man, huh? No,
It's right up there, right up to the bottom of their feet, right there,
to the bottom of their feet. If you had Rosebud, would you just take Rosebud and would you just sled over this a DVD copy of Sweet Girl if you had the chance? Is that how your affection for that?
Hit it with that snow globe, just snow globe in the face, Sweet Girl. There you go.
Snow globe in the face. I love Sweet Girl. That is a Netflix movie. We love Netflix. Love Sweet Girl. We can't wait to hear what Eric Holmes has to say about Sweet Girl. But first of all, I'm going to shut up because right now, speaking of Netflix, we are going to review this movie called The Guilty. It's in select theaters September 24th. And you Netflix subscribers who are not going to theaters or you don't have a theater near you that is playing The Guilty, you will have to wait, which is fine, until October 1st for The Guilty to arrive in your various on your Netflix streaming feed. Now, first off, this movie is a remake of the original. Bruce Perky, when you heard the news that Jake Gyllenhaal was going to develop a remake of The Guilty, what went through your mind? Did you feel that this was a fool's gamble to actually remake what I think all of us believe is close to a classic film?
Well, I like a lot of his projects. I was concerned because I think when we first heard about the remake, we heard about all the actors involved, and we started imagining that it was going to be not as focused around just the call taker and go all over the place and become this big sprawling epic. So that concerned me quite a bit. I had my doubts.
And what about you, Eric? Did you have your doubts about a remake of The Guilty, or were you pretty much invested in a remake no matter what? Because even though how much you love the original.
I wasn't too sure until I heard Antoine Fuqua, and I'm like, just give it to me. I'm actually an Antoine Fuqua fan. I know this isn't an opinion most people share, but
I share it.
I'm just saying, like, I know people are kind of hot and cold on him. So, but I'm a pretty big Antoine Fuqua fan. So when I heard he was involved, that kind of made me go, well, let's see what they do with it. I guess we'll get more into that.
We will get into it. Hot and cold. Bruce Perky are hot and cold on the works of Antoine Fuqua. By the way, Fuqua previously worked with The Guilty star Jake Gyllenhaal in the 2015 boxing drama Southpaw. What do you think about Fuqua's general work, Bruce Perky?
He just seems to be kind of a workman-like director from what I can see. I don't see any flair from him, but I don't see anything bad from him either. I think he's just kind of down the middle of the road.
There's nothing wrong with workman-like. We're all three of us are workman-like podcasters, Bruce, right? Didn't we? Yeah. Common man. Yeah. You're okay. You're okay with that?
I'm not running to see his films because his name's attached. Put it that way.
Okay.
We're a little bit better than down the middle, Greg. I don't know if you listened last week when I said that this is a podcast you need to watch in a theater.
Okay. Again, these lies that Eric Holmes is throwing out into the fray. I love it. He's really pumping up. Hold on one second, guys. I am going to hold on. What?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. I'm back. You know what? I thought by moving to my room, you can see the bed over here. I thought moving to my room, the thing would be better. The Wi-Fi hopefully is better this time. It was only several seconds. What was I saying? Eric Holmes. Oh, you were saying something about Southpaw, about Antoine Fuqua. General Bruce.
I was saying that we should, if you were listening last week, then we are a podcast that you should watch in the theater because our podcast is that good.
Our podcast is that good. Now let's get to the current day, The Guilty. Now this time out, okay, based on a remake, the original screenplay is from Gustav Mahler. So that's the original screenplay. This time out, Nick Pizzolatto from True Detective is the screenwriter behind this. Okay. And again, the aforementioned Antoine Fuqua is the director. So The Guilty centers on what is Jake's name in this movie. Jake Gyllenhaal plays Joe Baylor. He is a former he is a police officer and LAPD officer who is demoted currently to the dispatch desk. Okay. And then everything is, we're not going to say why he's at the dispatch desk. That's a big part of the mystery behind The Guilty, but he is relegated at this moment to answering 911 calls. Once everything seems to be okay, he's a little bit on edge. There's something that's going on regarding his job as a police officer that is really getting him nervous. And then he has his own relationship with his wife as his own kid that brings him added stress as much as he loves his family. When a kidnapped woman calls into that call center, that dispatch desk, he takes the call and he's immediately invested in her situation. That is essentially the plot of The Guilty. He will ultimately do whatever it takes to make sure this kidnapped woman's safe, because as the story goes on, there's a lot of, we talked about family. There may be children involved in this situation. This might be a very intense life and death situation. And this police officer, again, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, even though he has huge problems, insurmountable problems of his own, his focus in this real-time narrative is to make sure this woman and possibly her children are safe. Now, let's start off with Eric Holmes. Your thoughts on this remake of The Guilty? Did it stand on its own? Was this a worthwhile watch for you?
It was definitely a worthwhile watch. I would say anyone watching this one would probably do best to watch the original first, because this movie does a couple things slightly different than the original. I think it works better if you have seen the original and you're expecting certain things, and then those things don't quite play out the way that they did in the original. And then I don't know what else I'm going to say about that. One thing I did like is the wildfire settings kind of seem to add a bit more realistic tone on why they can't just have, with the technology we have, just descend all police down to the area to, they have to, he has to kind of, just like in the original, it kind of has to go through certain avenues to make things happen. And having everyone dealing with the wildfires kind of makes, I guess, a little more sense as to why he's having a hard time. Some of this, and Bruce could probably speak to this, because we did talk about last time about Bruce was a 911 operator, or whatever that job is called. There are some things that Jake Gyllenhaal's character does. It's like he would get fired for that, right? Like I kind of let that go, but that's definitely stood out to me as a thing. For those who did watch the original, there are slight changes to the ending, and there are slight similarities to the ending, and I kind of like both of them. And it's one of those weird things that I don't think this is better than the original, and I don't think it's worse. As far as the endings go, I think they're both equally good to me, but just for like wildly different reasons. Overall, I give this a recommend, but also watch the original first, because I think you're going to get more out of it if you do that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this version. Jake Gyllenhaal is really good in his role. I'm glad that he went a different way than the actual original actor from the first installment, from the first original film. Just a different it was different enough to make, in my opinion, this remake warranted. Antoine Fuqua, as we all know from Training Day, he has a good feel for Los Angeles. Me as a Los Angeles citizen, I appreciated how the wildfires played a real background part in this entire narrative. Like you were saying, Eric, it added an extra flavor. Even that said, really a lot of the drama is set in this one location. A lot of it is just Jake and the phone call and the other people, on the other end of the line. And, it's a great formula that continues to work with The Guilty. My only thing is, if you watch this and if you really liked it, whether you watch it first or not, I think it's it'd be cool if you actually watch the original as well. I mean, hopefully if you watch The Guilty and enjoy it, or maybe even if you don't enjoy The Guilty, this Netflix version, go to the original, because the original is such a fantastic film.
Can I change my mind?
Yeah.
Watch this one. If you haven't seen the original, watch this one first, then the original.
Yeah. Because
I think the ending to the original is going to be much more of a, watch this one first, then watch the original. I'm just going to stop saying.
Okay. I'm going to take it to you, Bruce. I think the ending to the original works a lot better. I don't. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, don't say more to that. Yeah, I agree. The original the original is just very resonant, and it hits you with its subtlety, and it's it's really galvanizing, the ending of the original. But still, in my opinion, does not detract from the remake. Still, very good performance from Jake Gyllenhaal. Bruce Berkey, your thoughts on The Guilty?
Well, I'll tell a little story. So imagine it's Saturday morning, you're a little kid, and you go downstairs. You're really excited to get your bowl of cereal, and you get down there, your mom pours you the bowl of cereal, and you go, "What's that?" And she goes, "Well, those are fruit rings." And you're, "Fruit rings? I mean, I like Fruit Loops, Mom. And she goes, well, but I got you fruit rings. Well, were they out of Fruit Loops? Oh no, they had lots of Fruit Loops. They had tons of them. Oh, do these taste better? Oh no, they're pretty close. These are cheaper, right? No. These are more expensive. You got to pay more for fruit rings, but you're going to have fruit rings today. This movie's fruit rings. It's
can I tell you something? Can I tell you something? Fruit rings, are they more nutritious for you? Because I'm going to play corporate America. Are they
more colors? More colors. That's all.
Okay, folks. Again, eat your fruit rings. We love you, Netflix. I'm a sellout. Eat your fruit rings are good for you.
This movie's fine, and it honestly, I was happily surprised to see it stayed pretty focused, but it did still. It couldn't resist. It couldn't resist being a little more Hollywoodized.
More ham-handed. Would you say that?
Well, I mean, the acting, like the main character was more over the top, more emotive. Like part of the original is that he's much more subdued, but I think that makes it more intense. Whereas this comes out a little more melodramatic, a little bit. It's not bad though.
Can I throw in a rebut on this? And I want to throw a little equation here.
Sure, you can throw in as many butts as you want. Go ahead.
Okay, so I don't
throw in a butt, then rebut.
Okay. Well, I was gonna make a crypto joke, but I'm not gonna and butts. So I'm not gonna try to because I don't want to sound like a misogynist. But no, let's just say, for example, let's say they remake The Searchers. Okay, the John Wayne character. Let's just say Tommy Lee Jones plays exactly the John Wayne character, and he is as stoic.
That's actually not a bad pitch.
Oh, right. Thank you, sir. But he is as stoic and as mysterious and as really elusive as a John Wayne character in The Searchers. A lot of critics, maybe even us, might say, "Oh, well, this seems like a note-by-note performance of what John Wayne did in The Searchers." So I don't know if I'm really into that. So my thing to you is, do you think maybe they went a little bit overboard to change up the original? Because if they went exactly beat by beat, which Jake could have done, they would have been really discredited. Or do you think that shouldn't even?
They didn't change it that much, and it's so close in time to the other movie. This is kind of like this to me. It's just if you really don't like subtitles, you really don't like them, or you just maybe literally can't read them. Okay, you can watch this. You'll get some out of it, but it's kind of like Funny Games, or what was the other one? Let the right one in. Sorry.
Yeah, it's supposed to Let Me In.
Yeah. I mean, they're fine. You get most of the same out of it, but it's just it's like 1/10 or 1/5 less of what you had before, or not quite there. So to me, it's kind of a why? What's the point? But you can watch this. I think if you watch this, it's not bad. I wouldn't say I'm not recommending it, but I'm more recommending the other movie. I'd say just go watch the other movie. And then if you're interested in seeing the differences, I'm kind of the reverse of Eric, but I know Eric's point. There is a value to Eric's way of going about it as far as emotional impact, but that also just goes straight to the source is kind of what I would say. But I kind of see Eric's point.
Yeah, it's fine. I wish I could say more about it, but that would kind of defeat the whole purpose.
No, I know what you're getting at. And the last thing I'd say is that Eric's totally right. In the other one, I gave it a few passes because I don't know the rules over in Europe for, dispatchers and call takers, but I know the general rules that you're going to have in America, and they vary from call center to call center, but stuff like standing up in the middle of the call center and yelling at everybody, you're not going to do that, banging on the windows. And then he goes way around some certain things, which he shouldn't be doing, but they do get around that a little bit by saying he's sort of maybe he's a cop that kind of cuts corners. So you kind of get a little bit of that too, but they would have kicked him out if they didn't fire him, they would have kicked him out of the call center. They said, "You can't take calls today. You're out, dude. No way." And they would have been listening to him. You don't have to yell at somebody to get their attention. You can contact each other while you're on calls, so that's kind of weird.
Bruce, does this movie have a bit? Sorry, Eric, you were going to say something.
I was going to say, because they did this in the original. So when you're doing the calls, I mean, you say they can hear you, but not if they go in the other room, though. When they go in the other room, then
they can tap. His manager, like the person that was basically like his manager, right? In this movie, that manager could tap into any phone line in that center.
Yeah, but not if they go in another room. Then they're
then
it's just between them and
Well, that's the other thing in this movie. All those posts are going to be manned. And if they're not manned, someone else is manning that spot. So if the manager position or that position is going on a break, someone is virtually going to take that position from them while they're gone.
Yeah.
Like that position is not going to just be empty.
I guess the whole thing I'm poking fun at in this and the original is just going in the other room. It's like, dude, like I don't see the idea of getting more privacy if people are still listening in.
Well, you would never do that either. You never say like, I'm just going to get up and go into a private room where I can have my own like call center and just do what I want. No, they're going to immediately be tapping into you like, what the hell is that guy doing? It's like,
Bruce, does this movie get a little bit more of an upscale for people who are not even familiar with the original and they go into this movie blind? Do you think this movie has more of an okay? Yeah,
if you went in this cold, had no idea it was a remake, it's a perfectly good movie. It's enjoyable. It's pretty darn well done because it does maintain a lot of that purity of the original as far as like that focus. So I think it's pretty good. But I mean, knowing there's another one that's just got made that's better, that's what I say is like, it's kind of like, well, why for, you know, what's the point?
Fair enough. Okay, so that is The Guilty, again in theater September 24th. October 1st, it hits Netflix. Solid recommend for me. My only caveat is please see the original. Oh, sorry, Bruce. Once you have time, see the original if you get the chance. It's a fantastic movie. So solid recommend for me. Eric Holmes, strong recommend for you on The Guilty?
Yeah, then the more I'm thinking of it, I'm thinking if you haven't seen the original, watch this one first, then the original, because I think the ending's going to hit harder on the original if you watch that second. It's going to hit hard either way, but I think if you're expecting things, because that's the cool thing about this. The endings are just different enough, and I think they both work on their own levels.
And Bruce, that is a recommend for you with a very interesting, complex recommend. I'm assuming for The Guilty in a weird way that it's like.
My recommend is if you don't have any idea and you're not listening to us and you think this is the only version that exists, you're going to love it. But if you know the other one exists, just go watch the other one. That's what I'm going to say.
Oh, jeez. If you know the other one, not even out as a curiosity shop factor as far as a remake, like, oh, we all love The Guilty, the original. Let's see what it's like. No?
It's fine. But like I said, if you really want to see what the fruit rings taste like after you tasted the Fruit Loops, go for it. You're not going to get a whole lot more out of it. So.
By the way, folks, I love
those purple rings are pretty good, though.
Yeah, thank you, Eric.
Purple rings are pretty good.
I love fruit rings. Me and Gus Van Zandt were eating a bunch of fruit rings when we were watching the remake of Psycho together.
The shot for shot Psycho remake.
Shot for shot Psycho, man. I was like, man, please, Mr. Van Zandt, do Hitchcock's entire oeuvre. I want shot for shots. I'd be okay. Were you fine with a shot for shot on Psycho? Eric Holmes, have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I saw when it came out on the VHS, I guess at the time.
You were cool with it?
Yeah. To me, it was just kind of a neat experiment. You know, that, and I wasn't precious about. I'm still not that precious about Hitchcock. I like him, but I'm not like, It's just Gus Van Zandt thinking, hey, let's try a thing. And he tried it and worked for some, didn't for most, and whatever.
The only thing that really infuriated me about that remake is I think one day on an offhand call, Bruce Perky just decided to call me in the middle of the night and told me, hey, by the way, Gus Van Zandt's remake is way better than the original. Don't tell anyone. Was that true, Bruce? Did you say that?
I totally did. I totally called you in the middle of the night and said that to you. I mean, it's one of the daily calls in the middle of the night that I make you. So I got to mix it up a little bit.
Got to mix it up. And he never called. And I'm not even going to ask Bruce Perky what he thought of the remake of that Van Zandt's remake. We all know what he's going to think because, I think most people feel the same way about that remake of Psycho. Now, here's a documentary called The Most Beautiful Boy in the World. Very interesting moniker. I don't know where to start with this because it opens in theaters Friday, September 24th at the Quad Cinemas in New York, Newark in Los Angeles, and it centers on the life of this actor named Bjorn Anderson. Okay, Bjorn Anderson to cinephiles of today.
Oh, no.
No,
I didn't know, and so I'm guessing other people might not either.
You didn't know? Well, this is okay.
The later part that shows up. I didn't know that. I didn't know who that was. Okay, so maybe other people might not know.
Yeah, I don't know. Bruce, should we even say that? I mean, should we?
Well, you could say he played a very, very impactful role in a very famous recent movie. How's that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
As an older man, so.
All right. Well, look, I was going to actually rebut Eric Holmes on this, but here's the thing. Eric Holmes is actually in the right. I was actually going to spoil this because I'm looking at the documentary description, and they talk about Bjorn Anderson. When he was 15, he was chosen among hundreds of young boys to actually play an important part in Death in Venice, directed by Luchino Visconti back in 1970. Okay, that's the premise for this movie. The movie that Eric Holmes was saying he was surprised by, we will not mention. I was actually going to drop it right now and mention the movie, but in Eric's defense, I'm looking at the description. They do not mention that movie. So it is an interesting movie that has come out within the last couple of years. And Bruce, and if you're looking at the video, Bruce is actually pointing to one of his Blu-ray box covers. So we're going to keep that as a surprise for you guys. Just know that Bjorn Anderson, he's an actor, he's a musician, composer, but this movie looks at his life and how his life was affected after working in Death in Venice. I mean, he ended up being a teen pop idol, a teen idol in Japan, and he was lusted over by many a person after his just charismatic performance in Death in Venice, because at 15, he was considered the most beautiful boy in the world, a nickname or phrase that was given to him by Mr. Luchino Visconti, a celebrated filmmaker. Let's get to Bruce Perky first. Bruce, what did you think of this? I'm going to just say it. It runs at 94 minutes. It's an extremely melancholic film. What did you think of this, Doc?
Yeah, I would say I would slightly recommend it. That's like my bottom line on this one. But it's a really frustrating documentary to me because it hints at a ton of things, but it doesn't really dive into them. And I mean, you can get all right out the gate. I mean, here's a young, he's a boy really, right? When he's cast in this scene, the most beautiful boy in the world. And he becomes this, cause celeb in Cannes, and like you said, teen idol and all this stuff. And you can tell he's kind of a troubled guy later in life. And you get to see some of that. You get to see a lot of him walking around in a long coat, walking around outside at night.
In the beach, in a bathhouse.
Yeah, yeah. And I almost feel like, and you guys tell me what you think, I feel like they had the idea, like, something's up with this guy. We're going to get down to the bottom of this. And they got access. He said, come on, well, let's talk. And then I feel like he would never talk all the way, because they hint a lot that there was something nefarious that happened during the first few years of that whole time of his life. They kind of hint at it, which is kind of irresponsible if you're not going to at least accuse or have him at least come out and say what he experienced. They just kind of let it lay out there as sort of just a general idea in this movie. And that kind of bothers me. And it makes me think that maybe they got into this and couldn't get him to go talk about it and couldn't get anyone else to talk about it. So they just had to make a movie with what they had. So that's kind of how it feels to me. I still think there's value added because it is going to tell you about somebody you probably have no idea about. And when you do find out who you know him as now, most likely, it will surprise you that he had this entirely other, even bigger, more famous part of his life. So that's interesting, I think.
Yeah, I really, I can't say one can enjoy this documentary. This is, like you said, Bruce, a very value-added documentary on Bjorn, especially when you realize what film made him famous years ago with Death in Venice, and the current film that he was in, that all of us, many of you listeners, will be surprised when you realize, oh, wow, he was in this film. You might want to go back and pick up your Blu-ray or DVD or your streaming service and watch him in that very impactful sequence again. Now, Eric Holmes, what did you think of this documentary?
Well, I think I'm an idiot because, one, I'm watching this and I didn't know who the guy was at all. I didn't even know of the Death in Venice. So I'm watching this thinking that you guys were thinking with the Penny Black. Like when I was watching the Penny Black, I'm just like, oh, this is a documentary. I didn't even think of it. Again, because I'm dumb. I don't think that hard into things a lot of the time. But with this one, I was thinking more of the Penny Black. I'm like, oh, this is like a mockumentary. That's cool that they use like old film stock. And like, I thought that this was all set up. And then the movie's going along. And then something seemed off. So I paused it and looked up Death in Venice. And like this is an actual thing. I'm like, oh, fuck, this is a real ass documentary. So this is a real person. Okay. And then the movie goes on for about 16 hours. I'm like, okay. And it's kind of, I kind of agree with actually I very much agree with Bruce that like they kind of hint at stuff, but the story's not there's no story there. It's just kind of the same thing over and over. Like it's almost like they spend, was this movie's like an hour 50 minutes, something like that, which isn't
94 minutes.
Yeah, which isn't bad,
Yeah.
but when you keep teasing the same thing over and over again and you don't, nothing's moving forward. It's just like he was abused, maybe, we don't know, could be, possibly. Was he abused? He was definitely maybe abused, I think, possibly. And so like an hour of that, it was just like, okay, just what did something happen? Or and then they show him as kind of like a, not really a hoarder, but he's definitely like living in squalor. And then there was a certain part, and this is the reason I stopped you, Greg, because there was a part where I'm like, oh, it's that guy. And then now this is just like completely like, kind of blowing my mind. It's like, wow, it's that guy. I didn't know that he may have possibly gotten abused, but more importantly, like I didn't know about that. That's like his history of like, apparently it was really big in Japan or Asia in general. And
didn't you feel like there was multiple stories that were really interesting that they didn't go into? Like he starts to talk about his mom. There's some real darkness with his mom, but we don't ever quite dive into that. His girlfriend now is kind of crazy, and you want to see what's going on with that relationship.
I got a different read on her. So was his girlfriend the one helping him clean the place, or the one that was giving him shit for having the place
same person? Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, I didn't pick up on that at all. Yeah. Like I said, I'm really smart.
They keep starting things, and you're like, follow through on some of these things just to ask the questions. Yeah. I don't know.
We were talking last week about the man behind the monster, how it looks like a YouTube documentary. This is not at all. This thing looks fantastic. I mean, I mentioned earlier, I thought I was watching a movie, kind of, what do they call that? The film, whatever, make it look realistic, but it's film verite. I thought it was like one of those sort of things. Yeah. So when I did find out, I'm actually watching a documentary, that was pretty illuminating and pretty surprising. And then the other part was surprising too. But overall, there's a bunch of story here, but they kind of, it's almost like there's an explosion, a fight, and a unicorn eating a minotaur behind me, but I'm videotaping the wall. And so you kind of hear some of it in the background, but it's like, dude, turn the camera that way. That's where the action is.
This movie is an acquired taste, because I think you have to be in a certain mood or exploratory vibe to it. And I think it goes to you, Eric, was the way this movie was shot. And Bruce, you were agreeing with this. It's directed by Christina Lindstrom and Christian Petri, Petri. It is beautifully shot. Okay. So it is not pure verite where you just have, people talking heads and they explain everything. And maybe in many ways that could have been a really interesting documentary as well. I think what the filmmakers were going for was this heightened realism, that you show him in a bathhouse contemplating things while he's in the water. He's out on the beach and he's looking out into the water. Then he's walking down a very dark and haunted corridor. It seems there's so many of these very interesting heightened moments that I think it ultimately, that's why maybe, Eric, you were thinking, well, is this a straight up true documentary? Because there was a lot of style behind this movie. Also, the information is very elusive because, Bjorn himself is very elusive. He seems like the kind of guy like, hey, let's just talk about your life over some beer or a nice dinner. And he's not going to, there are things that he just won't let go. And this includes his experience in Death in Venice, his relationship with his mother and father, with his family and his own sister, his child. It's one of these things that in its own elusive way, a lot of these questions are answered in a very elliptical fashion that you're either going to get on that boat, which I did, or in fairness to what you guys were saying, may not. So it's a very stylized documentary. Eric, my question to you is, Bruce gave this a light recommend. Do you give this a light recommend at all, or do you not recommend it just because it didn't really satisfy your viewing needs for this movie?
Well, I specifically want to recommend it to William Lindis and Andrew Martin, but they probably already know as soon as they heard who the guy is.
Right.
But I think there's an audience for this. It wasn't quite up my alley, but again, like this is we were talking about that. This is a documentary that could easily play in a movie theater, and like you should definitely go to a movie theater and watch this one because it looks fantastic. The story just didn't grab me, and it was kind of, it seemed like there was some stuff there, but they just weren't focused on the stuff that I would have been interested in. And maybe that's a me problem, or maybe that's an issue with the movie. I have no idea, but I think there's some people that's gonna like it. I didn't really work for me, but
okay,
that's kind of where I'm at.
All right,
I would say give it a shot. This would be like one of those give it 30 minutes. If you're feeling it, then keep going.
Okay, so this movie is, a lot of you might see it when it's on streaming or on demand. Slight recommend for Bruce. Eric is pretty much a slightly no on the recommend, but he said maybe give this movie a shot because a lot of stuff is filmic. For me personally, this is a strong recommend. I enjoyed this movie. Again, I hate to bring up the little caveat thing, but my only caveat regarding this movie is if you listen to Eric and Bruce's review of The Most Beautiful Boy in the World and are hesitant about watching this movie per their critiques and their praises of this doc, I would say go the other way because, again, melancholic. It is sad. It will drain your life's energy while you're watching this movie.
Oh yeah, if you're depressed, movie. This is a hard pass.
This is a hard pass, man.
Yeah. Get happy before you get in there.
Get happy,
and then let it bring you down.
I would not watch this movie on my phone while I'm standing on a cliff. I would not do that. For sure.
Very, very good, Bruce. Excellent. Yes. So this is a very interesting documentary. I'm glad that we all got to check this movie out again. In theaters, September 24th, this Friday, the Quad Cinemas in New York, Newark in Los Angeles. We'd love to hear what you guys think of this movie. Guess what? That is our, you know what? We don't have to do two or three more featured reviews. We're done. We're finished. Now we finally get to do a rewind for Pete's sake. What do we start off with, Bruce, first? Malignant or Sweet Girl? What do you want? Your choice. Dealer's choice, sir.
Sweet Girl. Let's do Sweet Girl.
We don't have to get into the plot of the Sweet Girl. We know it's Jason Momoa, Isabel Merced, father, daughter. It's situated. Their mother has cancer. She dies from the cancer. That's not a spoiler. There's something problem with the prescription company. Maybe they're corrupt. The dad, played by Jason Momoa, decides to go on a one-man revenge mission against Big Pharma to take them down. And why is it so? If it's about a dad gonna take Big Pharma down, why is this movie called Sweet Girl? I don't know. That's something that you need to know once you watch this movie, Sweet Girl, which I thought was very sweet and I loved it. I thought Isabel Merced and Jason Momoa were fantastic. I would watch this movie again. I strongly recommend this movie. I don't even know what its rating on is Rotten Tomatoes. I should check in a second. Bruce, your one-line recap, recommend or disrecommend on Sweet Girl. Your thoughts?
This is a pure taste in bad movies kind of movie. If this could easily be a bad movie you love because just the tone hits you right and the absurdity keeps piling on and makes it fun, like another movie that's coming up for me. This movie was like when the absurdity piles up and the twist happens, I wanted to throw things at the screen. I'm like, what do you do? Oh my God. It was like, this was a groaner. I didn't like it.
This groaner is, I thought it was, didn't you tell me it was Sublime? No? Or is that something else? Another movie? Sweet something else? No,
Sublime.
Not Sublime.
Isn't the guy from Sublime? He's dead, right? So, yeah.
Okay. Sublime. So Sublime and Sweet Girl probably does not mix for Bruce Perky per this review for Netflix. So that is a not recommend from Bruce Perky. I love this movie. Recommend for me. Enjoyed it. Now the final vote. Finally, Eric Holmes spent some time over the weekend to actually watch. Oh my gosh, Sweet Girl. As of right now on Rotten Tomatoes, I am cringing. Tomato meter from the critics, 19%. Audience score, 42%. Gosh, okay. Eric Holmes.
Plus 42, is that equal?
No, does not equal to your favorite number of all time.
Doesn't equal
Eric
76? Damn.
Okay,
Right.
Okay, no union there. Eric Holmes, your thoughts on Sweet Girl?
I like this one for the most part. It's kind of scratch that John Q itch, the Denzel Washington. It's got like the big black and white message, and then uses action movie violence to solve it or figure it out or whatever.
Eric Holmes, do you know who directed John Q?
Antoine Fuqua.
Antoine Fuqua.
He did. I thought it was John
No.
Cassavetes or one of the Cassavetes.
Yes, Nick Cassavetes, who was in what?
Fury.
Nick
Top
The
Cassavetes.
Fury.
He was a big bank robber in last week in Prisoners of the Ghostland.
Oh, I already
shit.
forgot that movie.
You already forgot about that. I wanted to plug Prisoners of the Ghostland one more time. Eric Holmes. Wasn't he good in that movie?
I don't know what he looks like.
He was a big guy,
He did them.
Yeah,
Oh.
That's right. You did mention that.
Yeah.
Wasn't his name something like Psycho?
Yeah, Psycho. Very.
Yeah.
Oh, Bruce, what is your business knowing this movie more than me and Eric, and we love it so much?
Nicolas Cage's character was named Hero.
Yeah. Hiro. Just
Bruce Sparky, very good. By the way, it was the bomb performance by Nick Cassavetes last week on Prisoners of the Ghostland. But okay, you mentioned John Q. Sweet Girl, keep on going. You like the movie?
It's got the I mean the way that the characters are set up, or my wife's dying, her mom's dying of cancer, and we just need this drug. Oh, you can't have that drug because we're putting a hold on it for money reasons.
Yep.
You're a piece of shit, and now she dies as a result. So now we're gonna turn it into an action movie, and that's fine. Like I said, John Q works on the same kind of principle. My son needs a heart, and we can't afford health insurance, so we're gonna beat people up until that happens.
So what you're saying is Sweet Girl, a topical look at the med industry, right, Bruce? What do you think?
Let's re-describe that scene that he just did. No, what really happens is the doctor runs out and says, "We've got the drug that'll save her." And then they say, "No, we're pulling it. We're not going to let you have it." And then he calls up on the CNN show and somehow gets through and says, like, "If I find you, I will kill you." And then
Exactly.
the daughter sings while the mom is dying, sings to her. And then
Okay.
Boy.
There's the first problem. I don't know how much they spent to sing Guns N' Roses, but that did not work, and you wasted your money. But everything Bruce said is true, and I was kind of here for it. It's
right.
It's topical, but it's stupid, and I can like when you use those topical things in a black and white way. It's real easy to get behind the character, and
Sure.
I'm not taking the movie too seriously.
It's
but
low
I'm taking
hanging
it
fruit.
but I'm taking it seriously enough to have fun with it. And then
Yeah. And then the most
then it gets to the twist.
Then it gets to the most magical moment ever in movie history, Eric.
And now
Right.
there's parts of the twist that kind of explain things, because
Sure.
Jason Momoa is acting in a way that just did not make sense to me. And then when I get to the twist, all the Jason Momoa stuff made sense, but now other things don't make sense.
Okay.
And so this does the high tension thing where it's like, okay, first of all, you didn't need that twist. And second of all, I think that twist breaks the movie upon reflection. But thankfully, that twist happened like right at the very end. And, it's one of those things where one of those movies, like, I don't hate that twist that much, I guess.
Thank you.
I would say that if you turn the movie off right, like if you know where that twist is and you turn the movie off right there, it's perfectly decent kind of, fun, silly action movie with a bit of a bit of a political message. And yeah, overall, it's a recommend. I think a lot of people have fun with it, but man, oh man, that ending is
A doozy.
it's quite brilliant, Greg.
It's quite a brilliant ending for Sweet Girl. I'm gonna ruin the twist right now for Sweet Girl. The twist is Jason Momoa is actually a fish. He rules Atlantis. The rest of the movie, he just literally and he literally flops around. So that is the big twist of Sweet Girl.
Yeah, that's why he jumps into the water at the very beginning. You gave it away, so now you don't have to watch it.
Sorry, folks. That's Sweet Girl.
Something flops after that point.
Oh boy, something. Does.
I will say that
Yes.
I do kind of like Jason Momoa. He had the music choices in this movie kind of hurt it a lot. I think Jason Momoa he had a couple of emotional scenes that I kind of bought, and I wasn't quite expecting that from him. So I'd like to see him kind of be able. Hopefully, this is one of those movies that someone watches and go, "Oh, I'm going to have Jason Momoa in this drama," and let him kind of spread his wings a little more.
Yes.
Maybe
Yes.
not. We'll see. But I did like him a lot in this. Like the girl in this.
Yeah, as Belmer said, very the
there was a hitman that should have been killed. Like, look, if you're gonna get in a fight with Jason Momoa, you can't look like either of us three,
right?
or skinnier. You need to be as big as Jason Momoa, because if Jason Momoa throws you into a pole, you die immediately.
That's a very good point.
And after you're done, and after you die, your body falls to the ground, and then you explode. That's how much power he has in his movements. And so the hitman, the rail thin hitman guy that he's thrown, But these are all nitpicks. It's an action movie. You gotta kind of let stuff like that go. But yeah, overall, recommend. Just get braced for that ending, because it is.
They
went for it. We'll just say they went for
they
it.
definitely went for it in the Sweet Girl and the twist and everything. There's a lot of stuff. And, again, look at the audience score, 42% and the 19% from the critics. This is one of these things. So again, definitely not a recommend from Bruce Perky, and a recommend from me and Eric. Yeah. Speaking of whether or not we should recommend this is, you know what? Cutting the cancer out is a good thing. It's always a good thing, in my opinion. Is it a good thing, though, when that is a big part of this movie called Malignant, which currently, as we speak, has a tomato meter rating from critics, surprisingly, at 76%, while the audience score is at I'm not going to say paltry, but at a disappointing 53%. This is the latest movie from Saw co-creator James Wan. He's done, we talked about Fish. He directed Aquaman, that Aquaman film. And he's one of Hollywood's most successful filmmakers. Malignant, by the way, if you look at our YouTube channel, our video channel, we're gonna have Bruce Perky has the poster of Malignant behind him. Bruce, can you tell our listeners, how did you get that wonderful poster of Malignant?
I just went down to the local theater and said, "You want to give me that poster?" And they said, "Yep."
He said, "Yes, don't hurt me."
Did you just said you want to give me that poster, or did you say, "May I please have that poster, sir? More, please." Oh,
I said, "We walk the night." And they said, "It's yours."
Okay,
Your
very nice.
Silver throat.
We're gonna talk about twists. And by the way, we just got back from a music license cut for me. But we're not going to talk about the plot of about this. The woman, she has nightmares. She has waking dreams, and she believes she claims she sees murders happening in real time, when maybe they're actually nightmares. The woman in question is played by actress Annabelle Wallis. She's terrific in this movie. Her sister is played by Maddie Hassan, and really, that's really much. I think Annabelle Wallis. What did you say? You poster man. You have Annabelle Wallis right behind you. She's in ring. Eric Holmes, do you think acting was a strong point in Malignant, or do you agree with Bruce that maybe it wasn't thespian level acting from Annabelle Wallis and the cast?
I didn't have a problem with the acting. A lot of it seemed over the top. But that's kind of. It felt in line with the tone of the movie, or kind of what it was going for. So that didn't stand out to me as a mark against the movie.
Okay, now first of all, before we get into our rewind on, or just general discussion on Malignant, if you're looking for a straight ahead horror thriller slasher thing that is A to B, forget it. If you're looking for a suspense thriller that has a really cool twist and gives you like a resonant, like, wow, this is amazing, like Vertigo or To Catch a Thief, that kind of stuff, forget that. If you're looking for a movie that is completely wacky and insane, and I don't know where this movie came from, yes. This is very, very good. And if you want to have your emotions played with for the longest time, yes, this movie is right up your alley. Bruce, you've been banging on the Malignant drum for the past several weeks. What did you love about this movie? What did you hate about this movie? Why have you coerced me and Eric to finally get a shot to see Malignant? Why?
Well, like Sweet Girl, it's, if you like the tone of the camp here, you'll love it. And it caught me, and it finally worked on me. And I was really kind of looking at it side-eyed for the first half, probably. But now I like the first half better because of where it was going and understanding what it was doing. And to me, what I really like, and this kind of inspired my recommendation for the week, I like when a major studio gets to a point with a director that it feels like they said, you know what? We're going to give you a decent budget and we trust you. You've given us good, solid product in the past. Show us what you got. Just have fun. And it feels like they did that with this, and he just took it and ran. And the fact that this weird movie is coming out of a major studio with funding behind it, it is kind of amazing to me. And I love it when that happens, and it's kind of rare.
Well, kind of rare. It's atypical. I'm trying to think of movies that were made under this kind of, I guess, studio umbrella, and I can't think of a movie within the last maybe decade. I'm sure there's a bunch of movies, but this is a rare experience. That's a good thing. So that being said, Eric Holmes, you find you're fresh. You have fresh eyes, ears, mouth, everything fresh. Malignant,
Gently used, but
gently.
I have all those things.
You have all gently used. Very good. Did you go gentle into that good night watching Malignant? Did this actually creep under your skin, and did you love it?
Well, the opening scene was really good. Then it got boring for about an hour, and then it got weird again at the end. And they got the action foot chase like down into the catacombs or whatever. That was pretty cool. The twists made me think, it's a remake of Imprint. That's cool. I don't know if anyone listening has seen Takashi Miike's Imprint, but check that out and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Or if you've seen Malignant, you can pretty much figure it out. So I heard a bunch of people talk about the craziness of the ending, but Imprint's one of my favorite masters of horror movies by Takashi Miike. And so when I got to the end of Malignant and realized what the crazy thing was, I was kind of a little bit underwhelmed, we'll say, just because when someone like overhypes a movie for you a little bit, and then you get there and like, it was fine. It wasn't like that crazy or whatever. So this kind of hurt it a little bit, but I did like the ending. The people running out. I think Bruce or someone posted something on Cinematics Facebook of the people trying to run out, and
the chair throw.
Detective John Malignant throws the chair and just hits him like right as they get to the door.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, there's definitely some cool action stuff in this. As a horror movie, it's whatever it is. As an action movie, I kind of like it, and then that middle part kind of doesn't do anything for me. But there are some like cool shots, but the shots don't really add anything to like I just think kind of like with James Wan and Lee Winnell, you had Saw, and I really like Saw, and then it seems like when they split up, like Lee Winnell just went dormant forever, but James Wan was kind of the guy who's doing all that stuff, and kudos to him on his success. But then Lee Winnell comes out with Upgrade and then The Invisible Man. And it's like, oh, that's where the brilliance of Saw came from. Now it's starting to make sense. I think because didn't he kind of co-write the Conjuring and I didn't like those. I didn't really like those either.
Interesting.
I'm just not a big fan of James Wan. Not to say that I don't like him. It's just kind of how Bruce seems to think of Anton Fuqua. That's kind of what I'm at with.
Me too. This is my favorite Wan movie.
All right.
I think the rest of them are bland. I think this is almost a comedy. I think this is almost a parody level of like Asian and Giallo, and those two scenes kinds of horror especially. Yeah,
my favorite James Wan would probably either be this first Saw or the Aquaman trailer, just because they have that badass music.
I thought you would love something like Death Sentence. I thought you'd probably love that.
I never seen that. So
interesting. Yeah, no. I think you would love Death Sentence. Actually,
I'll give that a shot. What was the other one? There was Death Sentence and
I forgot the other one he did, but I remember interviewing him, and
it's like Death or Dead something else. It came out around that same time.
Dead Silence, Dead Silence, right?
Yeah,
Dead Silence, yeah.
So those are the two I haven't seen. So maybe I should, because I'm kind of I'm not really a big fan of him doing horror, but I mean, with his action stuff in this, like dude flying out of that door, just bouncing against a wall. I'm like, oh fuck yes.
I think
so, it was like he gets that kinetic stuff in. So I think if he has some of that in his Dead Silence or Death Sentence, maybe I will check those out.
I think it was for the movie he did. I think it was Insidious 2 or something like that. And I think during the press junket, I specifically, my only question to him was, do you feel that Death Sentence was a completely underrated film? And I wish I still had the tape, but he was basically saying how he feels that movie. There's a really good moment in that movie. Don't really want to spoil it.
I saw part of The Conjuring, and I just can't.
Not your thing. Okay.
Yeah, it's not. And again, I know a lot of people love those movies. They're just not my speed at all.
So this movie, Malignant, is this a slight recommendation for you personally, or not a recommendation for you? Did you like it?
I enjoy. Other than that middle part, for the most part, I enjoyed watching it. I have no idea. I guess if you like The Conjuring and action movies, and give it a shot. If you haven't seen Imprint, I definitely recommend that, and you will hate me after you watch it.
Okay.
But I recommend it anyway.
Okay, Takashi Miike's Imprint is actually Eric Holmes's meat review of Malignant. That's actually pretty value added. I've never heard of Imprint. Definitely want to check it out. Bruce, you know what's interesting about Malignant is I was really not liking your recommendation, Bruce, of Malignant. 70 minutes into this movie, I felt like this was going to be the worst film of the year, and it felt really incoherent, incompetent, borderline stupid. And there's something that happens within the house. And there was something that happens in the house where something goes, well, let's just say something goes thud. And as soon as that happened, it goes to Bruce's point about this being a pretty much overt comedy in many ways, along with the horror, thriller, suspensor, twist elements, supernatural, all that stuff. And everything just clicked. The only thing, though, is you have to wade through the molasses that is, in my opinion, more than the first half of the movie. It really bleeds into the second half as well, but everything ramps up so well within the last 35 minutes that Malignant ultimately became a guilty pleasure. Wonderful watch for me. I gave this movie 3.5 stars just upon first viewing, but Bruce, to your point, if I watch this again, I bet you, I don't know how many times you've seen this, Bruce. I'm assuming I'm assuming the first half, all that stuff that we all had to suffer through, it gets better. Don't you think, Bruce, as far as it's an upscale?
I think so, because there's things in like that I watch now. I go like, oh, that was dumb, but I think it was kind of intentionally dumb. I think a lot of the stuff is kind of intentionally dumb. Like originally you look at you see the police station for the first time, and it's this giant, like it looks like a big open warehouse. And you're like, what the fuck kind of a police station? And then you understand, oh, it's like a parody of a police station. And then another really early one, and then I'll let you finish, but there's an early scene where the sister's locked out of the house and she just pops up at the window, which is the second story window.
Yeah.
Banging. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. That's like overt comedy. Like, no, your sister's not going to climb to the second story window. It's like a parody of these movies. And I think that once you kind of get into that vibe, I think this is a party movie. I think this is something you could have on in a party. You don't have to watch it that closely, but it's stupid enough that it'll get people's attention. There's some really cool action scenes at the end when you find out. I don't want to ruin it, although I'm sure everyone's seen it but me at this point. But when you find out how the thing works, the action scenes play really well, because there's that little bit where it's like, wait, hold, like almost you want to rewind it and go, was that, I can't say much more than that, but you can imagine what I'm talking about, I'm sure.
Bruce, to your point regarding
there's certain movements that shouldn't work on a human.
Yep. Yeah. No. Interesting stuff. Yeah. The action scenes are definitely enhanced at the end of the movie once you realize what's going on. Speaking of what's going on, Maddie Hassan, again, the aforementioned sister that Bruce, that you mentioned, there is a sequence, maybe a 5 to 6 minute sequence, where we follow her journey and she decides to go into an abandoned building filled with records. And you think to yourself, the abandoned building filled with records in the middle of the night, that is such an incoherent plot sequence that only a novice filmmaker would have done in his or her horror film. And I can't believe this is in the movie. And I was just thinking, this has no logic whatsoever. Again, once you digest the entire vision of what Malignant is, everything makes sense, because yes, that is a ridiculous scene. And a lot of this movie is ridiculous. If you're on that wave, you're going to probably really enjoy it as much as Bruce and I did, and slightly recommended as Eric does. He likes
one final thing. Let's put a moratorium on Where's My Mind.
Right.
It worked for Fight Club. Don't need to hear it again in a movie. Fight Club nailed it. Let's move on.
Yes, Where's My Mind? It does. It's a refrain throughout the movie. Where's My mind? And yeah, it is a little bit. Yeah, the good thing
On the
about
nose.
it's
But
kind of like
everything's
if,
on the nose.
but like if you use a like Pulp Fiction already used Miserlou, whether you think he used it great or not, that song belongs to Miserlou. Or when Kill Bill came out, and then afterwards you see like a bunch of things with and it's like,
right.
all right, which I'm sure you probably got that from a kung fu movie. I don't know, but I mean there's certain songs that belong to movies, and once that movie owns that song, you just let it die. Like pick something else. But I seem to remember hearing Where's My Mind
In
like
this movie,
a lot more lately, and we can just stop that right now.
okay, yeah. Definitely. There should be a moratorium on Where's My Mind. Again, in fairness to that actual cut is, I think it's a remake of Where's My Mind. It's a musical. It's an
Yeah, it's
instrumental version by, I forgot what group did it.
the Pixies.
Yes. Not the Pixies, but
Oh.
it's a remaking or reworking of the Pixies version of Where's My Mind. It's
The
just
Pixos.
no, yeah, the Pixos, the Pixelateds, so no, it's a different version, but still it is a little bit annoying. And like Bruce was saying, it's too really on the dot. Maybe that adds to the whole inane flavor of Malignant. Maybe James Wan just put it there just to annoy Eric Holmes and all of us regarding adding that Pixie song because it was so on the nose. We never know. We may never know. Maybe James Wan just pops up 20 years later. By the way, hey everybody, I hope you know everyone who enjoyed Malignant. Thank you guys, because that was a total lark, and I was just directing that blindfolded and laughing. Maybe that's his whole mantra behind Malignant. Either way, no matter what he made it, at least two strong recommendations by me and Bruce in our own weird and wacky way, and a slight recommend for Eric Holmes, who had a lot of nice things to say about this as well, even though he's not the biggest James Wan fan. Oh my God, my eyes are tearing because someone was doing a review of Malignant and said it was a salute to Giallo. Don't ever go there with this movie. Okay, so now let's go to recommendations. Eric Holmes recommends. What is your recommendation? I did not get to see it. I'm assuming Bruce Perky saw this a while back. This is a cult film, and this is highly beloved. Can you tell our listeners what's your recommendation of the week?
Yeah, it's a movie written and directed by L.Q. Jones based on a Harlan Ellison short story. In fact, I think this might be the only movie based on Harlan Ellison short story. I know Harlan Ellison wrote the screenplay for the Oscar, which I haven't seen, but I don't think the Oscar is based on one of his short stories, which is unfortunate because, he's got so many good ones. It's so many great ones. I don't know why, Hollywood. And granted, he sues people. Like, he's known for being litigious. But the reason he sues people is because people try to steal his shit, and then he gets angry, as you would, and so just pay him, option the rights to his thing, and make a movie. It'd be awesome. But they did make one, and that was written and directed by L.Q. Jones, starring Don Johnson, and Jason Robard shows up in the last half, and it's called A Boy and His Dog. And what do we say about A Boy and His Dog? This is World War IV, lasted for 5 days in the year 2024, the very distant future. It's 2 years from now, so we still haven't seen World War III yet, so it's going to be a rough 2 years, let me tell you what. But Don Johnson is walking around in a post-World War IV wasteland with his dog, who speaks to him telepathically. I think the reason that Harlan Ellison wrote this story was because he liked the idea of having a title, A Boy and His Dog, because you have certain thoughts of what a boy and his dog would be.
Like Old Yeller, like very feel good,
something like this.
Yeah, tragic maybe, but
not Mad. You don't think Mad Max, and right. You don't think of a Don Johnson going around through a wasteland with a dog trying to help him find a woman that he can. That he can rape. That's this character is not Don Johnson's character is not a good character, as is true for many Harlan Ellison stories. None of the characters are really great people in this, and he's got a fucking dark sense of humor. And this story and the movie is about as dark as you would expect, having having known Harlan Ellison, but not something you would expect having heard the title of the movie.
Can this movie be made today within this politically correct climate we're in, or do you think it would be watered down?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
In fact, I don't think. I think people would have a problem with a lot of Harlan Ellison's stories and characters, but I think that's because when people assume that just because a character is the main character in a movie or a book, they assume that the writer is like, hey, this is okay. And that's not always the case. Sometimes it's just, in Harlan Ellison's case, it's probably him just kind of trolling the audience saying, all right, that's exactly what it was. But this is, it's a good movie. It's got some, it's really funny a lot of times, especially with him, and like his dog's kind of an asshole. And so he's always got like the quips, and Doug Johnson's character, he's pretty much an idiot. And then the movie takes a turn about halfway through where they go to the Down Under. And then it almost becomes like this weird, like Stepford Wives or Get Out kind of thing. Not the same storyline or anything, but it's got that kind of same off feel to it. Like everything looks normal, sort of. It's not going to be for everyone, but it might be one of those things. If you watch it, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised about what exactly this is and what it has in store.
Eric, let me ask you, L.Q. Jones, born 1927, August 19th. He would be almost 100 years by now. It says on IMDb he's not dead. Now, this movie, A Boy and His Dog, it's his only feature film that he directed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then he went on. I'm looking at his IMDb. He would go on 5 years later to direct an episode of The Incredible Hulk. But then his entire life would be as a character actor. I went on his IMDb page. I took one look at his photo and wow, I've seen this guy in a million things. Do you think it's a shame that L.Q. Jones has not directed another movie since A Boy and His Dog?
I don't think that, I could be wrong, but I don't think it's because he wasn't allowed to. I get the sense that probably it just wasn't for him. And because I believe he was an actor as well.
Yeah.
And so I think he kind of had better time doing other things. And there's you can find an interview with L.Q. Jones and Harlan Ellison on YouTube. It's like an hour and a half long. It's a pretty long interview. It's not even really an interview. It's just those two talking. And because at the time this was being made, because L.Q. Jones because Harlan Ellison was supposed to write the screenplay. And Harlan Ellison was taking forever to write the screenplay. And point L.Q. Jones like, dude, I'm writing it. And then Harlan Ellison got angry about it. And I guess there's a line at the end that Harlan Ellison was kind of pissed about at the time, probably still before he died. But I think he eventually got over it, probably due to after what happened after the Oscar. But I would highly recommend, if you watch A Boy and His Dog, then maybe seek out that conversation with L.Q. Jones and Harlan Ellison, because it's a good one. And they lay everything out on the table, because Harlan Ellison isn't one to mince words, and after hearing that, L.Q. Jones isn't either. So they kind of butt heads quite nicely, I think.
Okay, so you recommend a strong recommendation, or if you like cult films, go check out A Boy and His Dog. It's worth watching.
Definitely if you like cult films, and if you like I think this came out before Mad Max.
Yeah, definitely. 1975.
Yeah. So this probably kind of set the table for a lot of what Mad Max, Road Warrior, and all that. So just from a film historian standpoint, I would watch that. And just for the fact that this is to date, this is the only feature-length movie based on a Harlan Ellison short story. So until they get David Lynch to do I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, this is all we got, folks.
Ever since I was a teenager, I'd read all these, Bruce, you remember in the 80s, you and I would feast on probably books in the library, books out in B. Dalton or Walden, all these really cult, interesting books that would be actually out for sale for us to rifle through. And I would remember that a lot of critics, a lot of writers would be saying how awesome A Boy and His Dog was. And that was even back in the 80s. Bruce, I'm assuming you've seen A Boy and His Dog. When was the first time you saw it? Do you remember anything much about the movie?
I for sure saw it in the 80s, I think on VHS. I didn't remember too much about it. I actually just rewatched I didn't have time to watch the whole thing before the show today, but I watched the first half. And then I went and I watched just the very end because I thought I remembered how it ended, and I was right. Yeah, I think Eric is spot on this. If it sounds like you fit in the category that he mentioned, that's what I would go with. I think, and I was watching this, and it's really weird to describe this tone to people, the tone of this movie, because it's very independent and kind of seems like, you know what it almost seems like to me? See what you think about this, Eric. This is almost has some similar tones to like a live action Ralph Bakshi movie. Like it almost feels a little bit like that. The weird humor and then the weird darkness that it sometimes has. It kind of has that vibe. So I feel like if you like Ralph Bakshi, you would probably like this movie.
And plus the tone of Ralph Bakshi is like spot that dude. That's a great example because the tone of his movies is spot on too. Because Ralph Bakshi, his characters do deplorable things and like a lot of stuff you would watch. I go, oh, Ralph Bakshi, he condones this. No, the characters condone this. He's neutral.
It almost feels like it lives in that same universe. You could imagine if Ralph Bakshi make this, he would almost not have to do anything but just animate it. Like that stay the same.
That's spot on. Yeah, that's.
And I've got to say,
1,000 years, but sorry, I just so impressed by that.
I didn't think about that until I watched it again after we talked about Ralph Bakshi so much, and I was like, damn, this almost feels like that. And then just got to say, this for a apocalyptic, like dark comedy ending, this one is really high up there. This is like a punchline of punchlines. I mean, to me, it's right up there with Strangelove almost in that kind of.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's high. That's high praise for that, for the ending.
It's not as epic, but it's as sardonically cynical about humanity. I guess I would say.
Okay, so
what do you think, Eric, about that?
Oh yeah. Did you like the ending, Eric?
Yeah. Again, Harlan Ellison did not. I think it was specifically like the last line was kind of a joke, and I think his issue was the joke kind of whatever.
I'm not talking about the line, but what happens in that last like 5 minutes.
I'm just a fan of Harlan Ellison in general, and so I was already predisposed to like this, but I thought this was a pretty good adaptation overall, and I think people should check it out. And that dude, Ralph Bakshi comparison is dead on. So if you like Ralph Bakshi, watch this.
This is a really good recommendation from Eric Holmes. One main reason why. It is streaming freaking everywhere. What is it? Fubco or Fubco, whatever that's, Hoopla, Voodoo, for free, Tubi, Canopy, Redbox with ads, Pluto TV with ads, Shout TV for free, IMDb TV. So you can stream this puppy everywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if I wouldn't be surprised if Boy and His Dog is actually on YouTube somewhere. But yes, it is streaming everywhere. I'm going to probably see it this weekend when I have some time on Hoopla. Really excited to see, or Canopy. Really excited to see A Boy and His Dog. Recommendation from Eric Holmes. Now, Bruce, your turn. What is your recommend for this week?
Well, mine, like I said, is inspired by the idea of a big studio release that was kind of wacky, and surprised it ever had a big studio release because it's really not a big studio type movie. And that is 1985's Life Force by Tobe Hooper. And this is after Poltergeist, I do believe. I think this is after he's already had a big hit. Of course, in a cult hit before that with Texas Chainsaw. This is a $25 million movie. I looked up the budget and I compared it to a bunch of other movies. It's about the same as Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's more than Alien. It's about the same or a little more, I think, than Blade Runner. This movie does not look near as good as those movies. This is a big, giant, crazy B movie. So what is Life Force? Also, this is on AMC Plus, Shudder, Pluto TV. Once again, you can find this a lot of places. No problem. And it's a Canon feature, if that means anything to you. Canon, Golan Globus. If you don't know anything about Canon, you know the kind of stuff they put out. So basically, you have this team, scientist team, and they're out to study Halley's Comet. And it starts out with them, and they're flying into the Halley's Comet. And they're like, oh my gosh, there's something in Halley's Comet. It's 150-mile long shape. It might look like a giant penis in space. I'm just saying that. It might look like that. And they go towards it, and there it is. It's this big spaceship. And they go inside of it, and they find giant dead bat-like figures, and they find naked humans in crystals. And they say, well, this is a good idea. Let's take these naked human crystal aliens into our ship. And off it goes. This is originally called Space Vampires. This is a crazy movie. There is a woman, Matilda May, who is naked in pretty much the whole movie. Everyone who's seen it remembers her. She's very memorable. And people get their life force pulled out of their bodies until they become shrunken, groaning, mummified creature type things. You do get Patrick Stewart in here at one point, acting up a storm. Steve Railsback, if you know him, he's the head dude. He's a terrible actor. He is the lead of this movie.
Wasn't Steve Railsback the
Charles Manson,
the stunt man? Oh, okay, Charles Manson.
He played Charles Manson in Helter Skelter. That's his claim to fame, and he played in this, and he's pretty terrible in this. This to me, okay. Will you like this movie? It's a mess, but this is a fun mess, I think, like Malignant. And I know Eric has seen this movie, so I'm curious to see what he thinks of this movie. To me, if you've seen old Hammer movies, if you've seen especially the sci-fi that Hammer came out with, and I talked before about the Quatermass series, this is very harkens back to that kind of nonsense. And this is nonsense in the best way to me. It's got tons of like practical effects, craziness. It doesn't make any sense, but it's fun all the way through. And it becomes kind of a zombie movie at the end too. That's a whole other aspect of this movie. It's just ridiculous.
In a good way, though.
I think so. I think if you like camp movies, especially if you like 80s camp movies, and you haven't seen this crazy horror sci-fi movie from that era, then you're missing out on something pretty unique.
Speaking of unique, was Toby a very unique filmmaker for you, Eric? Did you like this movie as well, as far as Life Force goes?
I didn't like this movie. I love this movie.
Okay.
You know how you're all sitting there at home listening to Find Your Film on whatever podcast network or YouTube. By the way, thank you for listening. You know how you're always watching movies and you're always slightly disappointed because you're like, I was really hoping I'd get to watch Steve Railsback and Patrick Stewart make out in this movie.
Yes.
Well, you get to watch it in this.
They list it as Patrick Stewart's first on-screen kiss.
That's amazing.
Yeah, this movie is like kind of bonk. It starts off, if you've ever read Rendezvous with Rama, it starts off really similar to that. They're trying to do something, and then they come across a ship, and it's got a cool sort of space exploration kind of vibe to it. And then once they see the bats and the vampires, and it becomes that, and then turns into Day of the Dead, and then it's like, all right, this is the movie we're watching. Cool.
I'm glad you love this, but I'm completely, really, when it comes with Hooper stuff, I'm ignorant. So my question, I want to throw this question out to you guys. Bruce, you mentioned $25 million for Life Force. Before that, he does Poltergeist, which is a hit. Okay, so as a person who doesn't know anything, and I haven't seen Texas at all, as someone who doesn't know Hooper stuff, do you think he cashed in on both these movies? I'm not saying cash in creatively because they're both good movies, supposedly. I still haven't seen Poltergeist. You guys like Poltergeist and you like this movie as well, Life Force. Do you think the rest of his life was just making movies that he really wanted to do? Because if you look at his body of work, I'm assuming he could have kowtowed to the studios and made more studio-friendly commercial films. Is that how the rest of his career went? Or is that a bad read on his body of work after, let's say, post-Life Force?
I feel like Texas Chainsaw Massacre is kind of his anomaly. I feel like he really was into B movies. I think a lot of the stuff you see are more B movie oriented, like the Funhouse. And then after this, he makes Invaders from Mars, a remake, and he made Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which you've seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. That is an over-the-top bonkers.
When did he do Eaten Alive?
Camp Fest.
That was pretty early, wasn't it?
That was early too. Yeah, that was before Poltergeist. Yeah, I think he's kind of underrated as kind of a B movie genre maker with a little bit better budgets than you normally would get.
It kind of reminds me a lot of George Romero. Had George Romero not been stuck doing zombie movies over and 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 over again.
I'm looking at a movie called The Mangler, and that looks like an interesting movie. The Mangler laundry machine thing. That's interesting, from 1995. Obviously, he did Body Bags, Night Terrors, a whole bunch of other stuff. Very interesting. I'm just saying, oh my goodness. I remember watching this TV movie he did called I'm Dangerous Tonight. I'm going to open it right now. I believe that movie stars Machen Amick, who I used to have a crush on. Let me see if I'm completely wrong.
Also, Salem's
Yes,
Lot.
I'm
Don't sleep on Salem's Lot. He made that TV miniseries, 2-part movie series.
So are you guys saying maybe he might be an underrated filmmaker for people who are not really well versed in that space, Bruce? You know what I'm saying? Within that.
That's hard to say because the people like the horror fans, he's not underrated at all. He's pretty well regarded. But then like if you go outside of horror,
right,
technically everything in horror is underrated. But
that's
true. I would say he's pretty well regarded within the horror genre. Therefore, it's hard to say that he's underrated. But yeah, I mean he like most of the stuff he's done.
Do you think people outside?
I still haven't seen The Djinn. I need to watch that.
Yeah,
that was like one of my most anticipated, and then it just never came out. Not the Djinn that we covered, but Toby Hooper's The Djinn, or was it Djinn? I can't remember. But anyway, that was like my most anticipated when it was supposed to come out, and then it just never came out. And then I just kind of forgot about it, and it kind of did whatever. And then he died. And then I think it probably came out shortly after that or something. I don't remember, but I saw it's available now, so I'll have to go check that one out.
Okay, cool. So that is Life Force, directed by Toby Hooper, recommended by Bruce Perky. I didn't even check where it's playing on Just Watch, but I'm sure. How did you see it, Bruce? You saw it on YouTube?
It's got AMC Plus, Shudder.
Oh yeah, my bad.
Pluto TV. Yeah, it's got a bunch of places. You can find this easily.
Because I remember several years ago, I think Shout Factory released a Life Force on Blu-ray, and that would have been cool. I think that there's like a director's cut or maybe an extended cut for 116 minutes or something for Life Force. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. It looks like Life Force is an interesting movie to watch. Yes, sir.
This is one of those movies. Like if this would be like top shelf Shout Factory type kind of release. Like if you're into those type of movies, this is like the upper tier of that.
Oh, very cool. Okay, Life Force. Strong recommends from Eric and Bruce. And now we are going to the final film we're covering this week is a What's in the Box from Bruce Perky. But before we do that, we're going to have a musical interlude. But before we have the musical interlude, I just want to really talk about middle class film class. Last week, I think it was last week or maybe a couple of weeks ago, all three of us reviewed the movie The Card Counter. I really love this movie so much, but what's interesting about that is I listened to Middle Class Film Class's field trip, which Bruce, you've mentioned on our Cinematics Facebook group that you want them to go more on these field trip things where they go see a movie and they report back and they really dive deep into the film. The Card Counter, what happened for their September 11th episode, they talked about this Paul Schrader film. And then towards the end, they do spoilers. So if you want to check out a really interesting take on The Card Counter, check out Middle Class Film Class, their new episode, which posted actually today, it's called an extra credit podcast episode of them doing a deep dive of Kate, a movie we all love from Netflix, and Malignant. So props to these guys. One of those guys, I guess that maybe the chairman of the board of Middle Class Film Class, Peter Beta, he does something for us every week. Eric, what does he do?
Hey, Pete, why don't you come close to the speakers? I see your feet. Now drop that beat.
Who's in the box? Oh, what's in the box? You lie! No! What's in the fucking box?
All right, Bruce, we're very good. Okay, Bruce, we're back. Bruce, what's in the box for you this week?
Oh, it was Tuff Turf, 1985, directed by Fritz Kirsch. I think I'm saying that correctly, hopefully. This was suggested by Brian O'Connell, who's also a great contributor to Cinematics page. Boy, oh boy, I didn't know what I was getting to on this movie. And oh, by the way, this is we talked about things showing everywhere. Eric, where are all the places this is showing?
You can watch it on various YouTube channels, probably about 14 of them or more, I think.
Yeah, this is everywhere.
I'm pretty sure that no one owns this movie because it's kind of like Night of the Living Dead. It just plays on everything.
So the best way, I guess, to go to this movie is if you are a lover of those 80s teen movies, and this is one that you've never heard of for some reason, which I might have heard of it, but that was about it. Like I heard of the name maybe. This is one you need to get in your eyeballs and in your brain, because it will kind of blow your mind that this happened and you didn't know about it. I think this is quite a weird movie. Tuff Turf, first of all, stars James Spader as the main character, Morgan, and Frankie is his love interest, who is involved with a leader of a gang in this Tuff Turf, wherever it is. It looks like Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It doesn't look very tough. And his kind of sidekick that he meets at the new school, because he's the new kid in school. That's another trope that's in this one. He meets up with Robert Downey Jr.'s character, Jimmy. So maybe this is a prequel to Less Than Zero. I don't know. Maybe.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Anyway, the basic idea is he's the new kid in town. He's had a troubled time at his old school. He comes from kind of a rich family, but they're kind of down and out. So they have to move to the poor area of town. Supposedly it's the poor area of town. And immediately the local gang like kind of sets their sights on him, because when he got there, he had busted up one of their scams to rob this guy, and he was in their sights as like somebody to be after. And of course the gang leader's girlfriend is in James Spader's sights. So, and then from there it just goes on. And this is a really once again, I'll let Eric talk about this a lot too. This is a crazy movie, because at times it feels like it's just a kind of a version of all those teen movies like Ferris Bueller's Day Off and all these kind of lighthearted teen movies, lots of singing and dancing and extended song breaks. And in the middle of that, there's this like tough gang stuff, which is very cartoonish, but surprisingly violent and surprisingly dark. This is an odd movie. I think you have fun with it in a camp way if you like that era and that type of movie. What do you think, Eric?
Well, first of all, this is absolutely a musical. There's no two ways around it. But yeah, it's all over the place. It starts off like The Warriors, and then it kind of turns into Revenge of the Nerds, and then it kind of sort of becomes not Animal House, but like the what's like the preppy version of Revenge of the Nerds, like School Ties maybe. Mm-hmm. And then it just kind of, and then you got Robert Downey Jr. basically playing Styles, but he's not a dickhead, he's like a good friend. And this is kind of if I had to describe what this movie was about, I would say it was very confusing to me and I have no idea what it's about. Probably like lust versus love or something, which I guess is kind of what Life Force is about. It's a cynical take on lust, which this is kind of they did the space vampire version of that, but let's do the Revenge of the Nerds, Warriors, School Ties version of that with Tough Enough. This is extremely 80s movies. The music is mostly awesome, especially when James Spader says he's gonna get on the piano and start singing "I Walk the." Bruce, you mentioned on the Cinematics Facebook page about doing a watch along or a commentary. God, this absolutely needs to be the first commentary.
Yeah,
if we're gonna start doing that, this needs to be the first one. This movie is
so much weirdness.
I can't explain the story to you. I could, but it would just sound like a kid saying and then, and it wouldn't make any sense. But it's still kind of fun to watch. And this would be crowd pleaser. We talk, about getting a bunch of friends, having some beers and popcorn. This is like that movie. And I'm also kind of surprised I've never heard of it until just now, or last week.
Okay, the director is Fritz Kirsch. Like Bruce said, his first movie in 1984, his debut was the 1984 film Children of the Corn. A year later, he directed the aforementioned Tuff Turf. Other movies include Winner Take All, Gore, G-O-R. I remember this movie, Gore. I've never seen Gore. You've seen it, Bruce? And then he's also
like a Conan ripoff, kind of, I think, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
I'm fucking watching that. Put that in the box.
Yeah, G-O-R, Gore. That sounds like a movie that I'm really into watching. And also in 1991, he directed this Michael, how do you pronounce it? Pare, right? Michael Pare film, Anthony Michael Hall film called Into the Sun. I believe they play.
Know about that one.
They play pilots, dude. So Into the Sun.
It sounds like this guy keeps making all my favorite movies that I've never even heard of.
So, anyways, maybe this guy. We were talking about filmmakers who mentioned Toby Hooper, and then now this guy Fritz Kirsch. This guy is forgotten, but you know what? Maybe he shouldn't be forgotten. Maybe he's made some really interesting movies. Bruce, if you don't like camp, you're not going to recommend Tuff Turf, but you recommend it for people who want a guilty pleasure campy time, correct?
Or yes, or people who really like those 80s, very 80s, like teen movies and have never heard of this movie, they need to see this movie too. Because if you've seen all those other ones, like you talked about, like Fast Times or Suburbia, or like all these weird movies that were like very, very rooted in that 80s teen life, this is one you should have caught too.
Tuff Turf is like a 10 speed of 80s movies.
Okay, nice. 10 speed. We love that. Using that 10 speed reference for the 80s. And by the way, Suburbia is a classic. Thank you, Bruce, for mentioning that film. That is your What's in the Box pick. Thank you, Brian O'Connell, once again for your chosen pick. And again, Brian O'Connell, let me remind listeners, his favorite movie of all time is Seven Samurai from Akira Kurosawa. So I'm assuming, Eric Holmes, this is not as good. Tuff Turf is not as good as Seven Samurai. I know it's apples and oranges, but you got to try them.
I mean, I don't think Seven Samurai is as good as Tuff Turf.
Unbelievable. That is the clip of the week. Clickbait, hashtag clickbait. Gonna use that and watch our listenership dwindle down to an integer level.
Seven Samurai.
We need to see Fritz Kirsch's Seven Samurai.
That would be so amazing. Okay, Tuff Turf. That is it.
1987.
That would be amazing. Okay, so Bruce, what's in the box? What's in the bleeping box?
Don't know yet. I don't know. I got my little slips of paper I got to open up.
Look in the box. Tell us what's in it, Bruce.
Well, it's suggested by Jeff Basson.
Oh, we love Jeff. Jeff Basson, who joined us months ago for a Days of Heaven discussion with Malik. That was really cool. That was a nice, thank you, Jeff.
And he
for that.
suggested this. I think he might have suggested this when we were doing our talk with him.
Okay.
And I don't remember what this movie is, so I'm gonna have to look it up. Tropical Malady.
What the heck is that? Tropical Malady. Okay. Well, that is an interesting Jeff Basson. He is a huge cinephile. So I'm going to have to look at this up right now on IMDb.
Do I even have it right?
It's a new melody from Eric Holmes, Tropical Malady from 2004.
Trying to get my Neil Diamond on.
Very good. Very, very good. We're going to be sued like left and right on this one. Anyways, that is Tropical Malady. Yes, this movie does exist, Bruce. It sounds really interesting. So I'm sure it's playing. It had received 7 awards, 8 nominations. So, all right, Bruce.
Okay.
You're gonna Bruce is gonna track that down. Listeners, if you want to actually request some movies for Bruce to watch and choices that he can drop in his What's in the Box, email him at bruceperky@gmail.com or contact him via his YouTube channel, Rusto Meyer. I want Bruce Perky to upload and do more content on his wonderful channel, Bruce Perky. You should be doing that. Not like you have time to do it, but yes, Eric Holmes.
Greg, before because we're wrapping up, but I did want to ask you something. Oh, what was that? That Star Wars, The Force, and there's 5 of them. Oh, what was that? Force 5.
Oh, Force 5. Thank you, Eric Holmes. But okay, listeners, before we go, Eric Holmes is actually our hype man for Find Your Film podcast. He's very good at
Whoop, whoop.
He's a hype man. He knows how to plug things, and unfortunately, I don't know how to plug things. But I was recently on, maybe about a week ago, on the Force 5 podcast. I discussed my ultimate 5 underrated films with Jason over at the Force 5 podcast, I believe, and it's a really cool podcast. And thank you so much for that mention, Eric Holmes. Were you guys able to listen to a little bit how I sounded?
I did. You sounded great, and you guys had some really good picks in there, and there was a couple of them that I was like, just haven't even heard of. There was an early one early on that you did. I can't remember the name of it, and I looked it up and I could not find it anywhere.
Oh,
and I was going to ask you about it, but I can't remember the name of it. So,
okay, yeah, and
I'll just listen to Force 5 episode again.
I'll listen to it again. I'll get to
rate and review it while I'm there.
Oh yes, I know what that movie is. Yes, Eric Holmes. That movie is the Robert Downey Jr. film Restoration. That movie is hard to find. It's you can actually get that on DVD. Was that the movie you were thinking about?
No, it was. Okay. I think it was like one of the first, or I think it was. Oh, I can't remember. My brain sucks so bad. I think either you or him.
Was it the Robert Forster movie?
Yeah, that one. Which one was that?
I can remember. I know it was hard to find. I look for it too.
Oh, very good.
Robert Forster movie he mentioned. Yeah.
We should reach out to Jason to see how we can find that aforementioned Robert Forster film. I forget the title as well, because you know what, it's all about his line, my line. When Jason Kleberg was talking, I apologize, Jason. I was not listening to you one bit. I was just waiting to talk. You know what? When I'm on those other podcasts, I'm not like this on Find Your Film. Find Your Film, I have to be a little bit more, like a little like this. But when I was on the Force 5, I was, yes, Jason, my favorite Ridley Scott film is Kingdom of Heaven, director's cut. What a wonderful film. It's a very underrated film, and so yeah.
He's
So
like,
but you have to be on your
fingered.
you have to be on your toes here to make sure that we don't like cross any copyright lines. Like, make sure I don't go, and then you would know to mark that down and take it out of the podcast so we don't get.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eric. Just for that, I'm going to have to go back to my mellifluous Greg Shrezovsky voice on my Force 5 podcast, because this is my contemplative voice and also my mad voice at Eric for doing a top 40 list all throughout this podcast. And I'm going to have to edit now after we stop this recording. Love you, Eric.
You can leave most of it in.
Yeah, of course. Eric Holmes, Bruce Perky. Well, Eric Holmes, before we go, any final thoughts on? Oh,
yes,
you know
I love the poster behind Bruce. Right next to the Malignant one. What is that? It looks real familiar.
Lose the flower. Oh, lose the flower of evil. Bruce.
Hold on. What is that?
Oh, wait. Where's lose the flower of evil?
We all love lose. Wait, where's my lose? Oh, did I forget to give you my address, Eric?
No, it should be on the way there somewhere.
Oh, thank you so much.
It should be popping up any day, if not today.
Lose the flower
right now. Go check.
Lose the flower of evil. Directed by who? Eric Holmes.
Juan Diego Escobar Alzate.
Very good. Mr. Alzate is a fine filmmaker. We on a previous podcast, we had him on for the entire episode, and he talks in depth about Lose the Flower of Evil. Really wonderful film. I actually like Bruce's response to Lose the Flower of Evil during the interview, where he talked to Alzate, saying that he actually was able to appreciate the movie upon a second viewing. Eric, do you agree with this? Like, this is a movie that gets you once, but then maybe you need to watch it again to really, because you've seen it several times at least.
Yeah, it's pretty dense. And then you break it down to him, it's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
And by the way,
I think you're taking too much out of this.
But by the way, I mean, that's a cool thing about movies like this, when you got kind of the passion that he does for filmmaking. You can't help but add more to it. It can't help but be more than the sum of its parts, I guess. And
yes, and in that,
Flower of Evil is a great example of that.
And if you listen to our interview, Eric Holmes gets very scholarly, and he's reading into a lot of things that maybe the director did not put in himself consciously. But in fairness to Eric's actually really interesting interpretations, a movie like Lose the Flower of Evil demands so many different looks and just looks at that movie. It's a very intense movie, and sometimes maybe the filmmaker, he or she making the film, maybe they don't consciously put that in, but maybe years later the subconscious surfaces, and they realize, hey, that question that Eric Holmes asked me several years ago about this, he was right. Who knows?
Oh, I know I'm right. I'm currently writing a book about it.
And Eric Holmes currently, the 800-page version of Lose the Flower of Evil, an interpretation by Eric Holmes, will be coming out in conjunction with his upcoming film, which is will be coming out down the road. And those are the. Yes, sir. I got news about that. I should probably save that. I should probably save that for next week. But I'll tease. If anyone's living in the Colorado area and they want to be in a teaser trailer, then hit me up. Okay. Anyone? Okay. Hit up Eric Holmes. And Bruce and I have read Eric Holmes' screenplay. We both really enjoyed it.
If you're not busy on October 9th and you're in the Colorado area,
hit up.
That's not even a tease. It's just telling you what I'm shooting the teaser trailer on October 9th. Up past Woodland Park, but more to come on that.
Okay. More to come on that. Eric Holmes, email him at hamslime@gmail.com. Get into his universe. Very interesting.
Or just slide into my DMs. That's cool.
Slide into his DMs. Bruce and I don't know. What does that mean, Bruce? We're both old. What does that mean? Is that an Instagram reference about emailing people?
Have you dirty maintenance? Slide into my dirty maintenance.
I'll tell you when I call you tonight.
Very good. Very funny with the dry humor. Bruce Perky, as always, per wit, to wit, you're ending the show with a witticism.
I have some final things to tell you and Eric, but there is a caveat. First of all, what I have to tell you both is don't cross the copyright streams. And now that I've said that, Eric, take it away.
I don't even know what the lyrics are. I just kind of make them up.
All right, guys. Well, the cut you heard was Eric Holmes doing his wonderful and dramatic rendition of I Walk the Night. If you haven't heard the song, please listen to it sooner than later. We will see you next week. And by then, do your homework. Watch Tuff Turf.